Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Selenium Tech Automation. So today I am going to discuss about a very important concept in software testing point of view. So that is software testing life cycle. So here what is software testing life cycle? Software testing life cycle is a sequence of specific activities conducted during the testing process to ensure software quality goals are met or not. Okay, software testing life cycle is a sequence of specific activities conducted during the testing process to ensure software quality goals are met or not. Okay, so STLC means software testing life cycle involves both verification and validation activities. Okay, verification and validation activities. In simple words, we can call this software testing life cycle also called as QA process. Okay, we can call QA process is also called as software testing life cycle. So in this software testing life cycle we can have various activities. So those are all test planning. The first one is test planning, the second one is test analysis, the third one is test design, the next one is test execution, the last one is test closure. Okay, here test planning means what is this activity? So in this activity it is the first phase. Okay, test planning is the first phase in software testing where your PM means project manager or QA manager defines some test strategy. Okay, defines some test strategy. Based upon this test strategy, team lead is going to define some test plans. Okay, define some test plans. Here test planning means it is the first place in software testing where project manager and QA manager define some test strategy. Based upon this test strategy, team lead is going to define the test plan. Okay, here strategy means, so it is like here strategy means it is like a high level plan and approach, right? It is like high level plan and approach defined by the project manager or QA manager for testing a project. Okay, here test strategy means it is a high level plan and approach defined by the project manager or QA manager for testing a project. And the test plan is like it is a detailed work plan. Okay, here the test plan means it is a detailed work plan that will explain about scope of testing. The next one is test approach, resources, test deliverables and work schedules. Okay, these are all comes under inside this test plan document only. Test plan is a detailed work plan which will explain about scope of testing. The next one is test approach, resources and work schedules and test deliverables. Here scope of testing means what to test and what not to test. Okay, there are some scenarios like 5 to 10 scenarios where we are going to test. So out of 10 scenarios, so I am going to test only 5 or 6 scenarios where we can able to test. So remaining 4 we are not able to test because there are some issues or because of some limitations of Selenium or manually, so we are not going to test those remaining 4 test cases. So that we can define inside this scope of testing. So the next one is test approach. Okay, it is like a procedure, so where we have to follow some guidelines like what to test first and what to do next, I mean what to test the next one, and when we are going to stop this testing and when we are going to start the next testing. Okay, these are all comes under test approach. So when we are coming to resources, under this resources, man resources, hardware resources and also software resources, these are all required for an application to be tested successfully, right? So that's why these will comes under resources. So then the next one is test deliverables. Okay, then the next one is test deliverables. What are test deliverables? Here test deliverables are the test artifacts. Okay, test deliverables are the test artifacts which are given to the stakeholders of a software development lifecycle. During this phase we are going to give this test deliverables to the stakeholders. Okay, during software development life cycle we are going to give these test deliverables to the stakeholders. Okay, once if we tested an application with some module, we are going to deliver that to the client, right? So that will comes under test deliverables. And the next one is work schedules. So what is a work schedule here? So at what time we are going to complete this module to be tested. Okay, so at what time we are going to deliver all the modules what we tested to the client, means after 4 months or 5 months. So those are all we are going to schedule under this work schedules. Okay, So in better way we can call, I mean we can discuss about, we can define about this test plan as, this test plan will act like a guideline document and it will act like a roadmap for a testing an application. Okay, this test plan document will act like a guideline, right? And also this test plan will act like a roadmap for testing a project. Okay, it is like a roadmap for testing a project. Here test planning, right? The first phase is here is the test planning. So we already discussed about this test strategy and test plan as well, and also this one also. In simple words, a test plan will act like a guideline document and acts like a roadmap for testing a project. The next slide is, so test plan template. Okay, based upon this test plan template only, we are going to achieve all these, like scope of testing, test approach, what are all the resources, test deliverables, work schedule. These are all we are going to store inside this test plan template. So here test plan template means it is an IEEE 829 test plan document which will have the below components. So what we discussed so far, the first one is scope of testing, the next one is test approach, the next one is resources, and the next one is test deliverables, and the last one is work schedules. So these are all comes under this same test plan template only. So in real time the test plan template will looks like it is an IEEE 829 test plan document and which is containing the below components what we discussed till now. Okay, so the next one is, okay, the next one is test analysis phase. Okay, the next one is test analysis phase. Here you can see in this diagram we done with our first phase, that is test planning. The next phase is here test analysis. Okay, here test analysis means in this phase we are going to analyze the, given software requirement specifications or functional requirement specification document to understand the project. Okay, to understand the project properly. Okay, during this test analysis phase we are going to analyze the given software requirement specifications or system requirement specification and functional requirement specification documents to understand the application fully, to understand the project properly. Okay, so here BRS, SRS and FRS means business requirement specification, software requirement specification and functional requirement specification. Okay, so during this analyzing, okay, during this analyzing, if we have any questions, okay, during this analyzing phase, if we have any questions, we are going to record it, all these details in some RCN document, that is requirement clarification note. Okay, that is requirement clarification note, and these questions are clarified by the team lead. Okay, these are, we are going to get some clarification with the help of our team lead. Okay, so during this test analysis phase, if we have any questions while understanding or while analyzing the application or project, so we are going to write down all those in the form of RCN, that is requirement clarification note, and these details we are going to discuss with our team lead so that he will provide some detailed solution for that raised questions. Okay, okay, and by end of this test analysis phase, so finally testers will should have some knowledge about the product and end user requirements. Okay, so by end of this test analysis, if you have any questions while doing this analyzing phase, if you have any questions, we are going to record all those inside this RCN document, that is requirement clarification note document. So then we will send these details to our team lead, so where team lead will briefly explain about your questions. So after this phase, by end of this test analysis phase, so every tester will should know, have the good knowledge about project and also what are all the requirements, which are expecting by client. Okay, what are all the requirements which are expecting by client. So these are details you will get by end of this test analysis phase. Okay, and also here FRS template will contain mainly the following components. Okay, a functional requirement specification will have the following components such as overview and prototype and page elements, input validation, use case diagrams, task flow diagram, use cases. Okay, these are all the components where FRS document will contain. Here RCN, this is requirement clarification notes. Okay, this is requirement clarification note. So it is one of the QA process template. Okay, RCN is a requirement clarification note. It is the one of the QA process template which is used to record the questions during the test analysis phase. Okay, RCN, requirement clarification note, is one of the QA process template which is used to record questions that occur during test analysis phase and also to update the clarifications given by the team lead. Okay, so that is the purpose of this requirement clarification note document or template. Okay, the next phase is here. The next phase is test design, right? The third phase is test design. So we are going to discuss about this test design phase. Okay, here in this test design phase, testers will prepare some test specifications such as test scenarios, test cases, test scenario summary report, test data, test case summary reports, and the last one is requirement traceability matrix. Okay, during this test design phase, testers will prepare various test specifications such as test scenarios, test cases, and also test scenario summary report and test data, test case summary reports, and the last one is requirement traceability matrix. Okay, so here once this design phase is done, we are going to do some test execution, right? We will come to this point later. So first we will discuss about test design and what are all the test specification we can have. We are going to discuss about one by one, that is from test scenarios. Okay, so here under this test design phase, this is one component or specification, that is test scenarios. Okay, this one is test scenario is a feature to be tested or a functionality to be tested in the application under test is called as test scenario. For example, there is one Gmail application, there I have to be login. So as a tester we can consider that one as an example scenario. Okay, Gmail login is an example scenario. So that is called test scenario, where we are going to test that functionality with, okay, where we are going to test that functionality, that application which is in under test, that is called as test scenario. In simple words, how we can call what to be tested is called as test scenario. Okay, for example, I want to test Amazon application login, that is called one scenario. I want to test whether my if I compose some email and I am sending to some other guy, so whether he received or not I want to test, so that is also called one scenario. Okay, that is also called one scenario. So below are the test scenarios I mentioned for IRCTC application. So the first one is login check. At the same time I am checking for new user registration also. These two are different scenarios. And the next scenario is new login registrations. For example, if any user wants to log into with his account into IRCTC application where he registered newly, so this is also one scenario. At the same time I want to test booking a train ticket, I want to test cancelling of a flight ticket or train ticket. Okay, so anything. So these are all the scenarios we can consider. So here, so the next specification here is test scenario summary report. Once all scenarios are prepared, okay, once all scenarios are prepared, for example from login to logout, in between these two how many scenarios we can have, we can all we can list all these scenarios in separate report, that is called test scenario summary report. So once all scenarios are prepared, reviewed and approved module wise, priority wise, number of scenarios prepared for the project updated in this test scenario summary report. Okay, once all scenarios are prepared, reviewed and approved module wise, priority wise, number of scenarios prepared for the project updated in this test scenario summary report. You can see here module name here is admin. Okay, number of test scenarios, high priority scenarios are 2, high priority P1 priority is 2 test scenarios, and medium priority is 2 test scenarios, and low P3 scenarios are 2. So total for admin scenario I have these many test scenarios, that is 8. So likewise you can have how many modules inside your application, so those many scenarios you will get by end of this count. Okay, that is 40 in my case, for example. So this is how this test scenario summary report will looks like. So the next one is test summary report helps management to estimate the time required for the test case preparation. So with all these details, this will helps your management to estimate some time to complete all the test cases for the particular test scenarios. Okay, this is the main advantage for the management, where Management will estimate the time required for the test case preparation. Here management means your team manager or lead or your teams or business analyst. So everyone will comes under test management only, right? So the next one is test case. Okay, as of now we done with test scenario summary report and test scenario. You can see the next one is here test case. Okay, the next one is test case. So okay, the next one is test phase. So I mean test case. So let me go to that one, test case. Okay, the next concept here under this test design phase here is test case. Okay, what is a test case? Actually, test case, it is a set of precondition, test procedure, input data and expected behavior planned by the tester to validate a functionality in the system, right? So these are all the terms which will comes under test case. A test case is a set of precondition. What is the procedure for the test case? What are all the test that I want to, I mean I have to put inside that application as input data, and what is the expected behavior based upon the input data. So these are all planned by the testers to validate a functionality in the system. In simple words, what to test and how to test, it is called as test case. Okay, in simple words, what to test and how to test is called as test case, right? So this is the document, I mean this is the template, I mean test case template. So where I am going to show you with the help of some Gmail login module. Okay, Gmail login module, these are all the test cases. For example, you can mention here test case ID or name, test case description, what are the preconditions, what is your step number, then the next column is step description. It will tell you about what is the test case and also what are all the input fields where you are going to enter the details. After entering the details, what is the expected result and what is the actual result. So overall, what is the test result, whether it's passed or failed. So based upon that, we are going to mention the priority. Okay, this is one small Gmail test case template where I created by myself. So it is very useful for you to understand about this test case template. Okay, to understand about this test case template. In our next slide, we can see it in briefly. You can see here for test cases for Gmail login, test cases for Gmail login. Okay, so here I write only one test case for Gmail login. Here you can see what are the details, project name, what is project name, I can mention here Gmail application, module name is login, document references, what we are going to reference under this one, business requirement specifications and also a software requirement specifications, right? So which is created by Selenium Tech Automation, and when I created this one, today's date. Okay, so in the same way, what is our test case ID or name here? Test case ID is TC001. What is the test case name? Google Gmail login. Okay, then the test case description is check login with valid username and valid password. Okay, what are the preconditions here? Username should be present inside the Google database. That is our step number 1. When it comes to step description, enter valid username and enter valid password. What are all the input fields we have to select here? The first one is for username, where I can enter my username in that username text field. The next one is input field is password text field, where I will enter my password, right? So what is the next expected result? System should display username and password. Okay, then what is the actual result? Username and password displayed in the system. So what is the test result? Passed. What is the priority? High priority, I can mention. Okay, if you want to check for any other scenario, you can write how many test cases if you want. Okay, this is all about test cases for Gmail login, and this is the one example what I created. So then the next one here is test case design techniques. Okay, so how we can create test cases, on what basis we can create test cases. Okay, so the main point here is to avoid exhaustive testing, to ensure 100% requirement coverage, to find out good defects and also to minimize the count of test cases. We are going to use these below techniques which is introduced in the black box testing. Okay, to avoid exhaustive testing, here exhaustive testing means suppose there is an application where 1000 users are going to log into that application. Okay, so I don't want to test for all the users like 1000 users, so I can test only 10 to 20 users. So based upon that results, I can conclude remaining users also will work this application. Okay, to avoid this exhaustive testing, so it is not possible to test for all the users. Okay, we can check for only few users. Based upon the results, we can tell that okay, it is working fine, so that is fine. So to avoid exhaustive testing, to ensure 100% requirement coverage, to find out good defects, and also to minimize the count of test cases, below are the techniques which are introduced by black box testing, which are introduced in black box testing. So the first one is here, and also it is very important interview concept. Okay guys, it is very important interview concept. Okay, so be prepared very well for this question. Okay, what is test case design techniques means to avoid exhaustive testing, to ensure 100% requirement coverage, to find out good defects, and also to minimize the count of test cases. Following techniques are introduced in black box testing. Okay, the first one here is equivalence class partitioning, the second one is boundary value analysis, the third one is decision table testing, the fourth one is state transition testing, and the fifth one is use case based testing. Okay, here, so I will discuss only about one or two test case design techniques. So if you want more, you can just google it, what is equivalence class partitioning, what is state transition testing, what is use case based testing. Okay, you can check in google for remaining what I am not going to cover in this video. Okay, so I will cover equivalence class partitioning. So what is equivalence class partition technique here? So as per the ECP, means equivalence class partitioning technique, identify all possible input conditions to validate the functionality. Okay, as per the equivalence class partitioning technique, so we have to identify what are all the input conditions to validate the application functionality. So based upon that possible input conditions, we can divide all these into some groups. Okay, based upon all the possible inputs, so we are going to make some groups. I mean, we are going to divide all these possibility input conditions into some groups. Okay, after that, once if we make all these into some all I mean once we divided all these into some groups, while making a group, make sure that all input that belongs to a group is producing the same logical output or not. Okay, for example, there is some valid portions. So for example, there is some username, I mean username field, so where user can enter some characters. For example, gmail username is there, so I can enter my username over there, that is Selenium Tech Automation. So what are all the possible input condition for this one? Okay, so what are all the possible input conditions? First one is I can enter the characters, I can enter capital letter characters, that is A B C D capital letter alphabets. Okay, so I can enter small letter alphabets, so at the same time I can enter numeric values. Okay, at the same time I can enter the numeric values also. So these are all the possible input conditions. So if we enter some different symbols, that is at the rate or asterisk, okay, or some square brackets, so inside if you enter inside these field, I mean these details inside that username field, then you will get some error, right? So we can avoid all those remaining special characters or symbols. We can enter only the possible input conditions, that is A B C D E F G, whether it is alphabetical or capital letter. At the same time I can enter numeric letters also. So we have to group all these possible input conditions, so then we need to test. So I will test first with alphabetical order, I mean alphabets, I mean small letter alphabets. I will test my username text field, it is accepting. So then I will test with capital letter alphabets, then I will test with numeric digits, so then I will test with special symbols or characters inside that username text field. During this time what will happen, it will throw you some error saying that special symbols or characters are not required or not accepting. Okay, so we can avoid all these special characters or symbols. We can group only the possible input conditions. Okay, and make sure with small letter alphabets also you can able to log in, with numeric digits also we can able to log in, and also with capital letters also you can able to log in. But the final output is you have to log in successfully with all these possible input conditions. Okay, so this is about equivalence class partitioning. So in the same way we can have some boundary value analysis also. Okay, boundary value analysis means it has observed that most of the developers are doing mistakes while specifying some boundary conditions such as less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. Okay, while developers are developing the application, though they will made some mistakes while specifying some boundary conditions such as less than, greater than, or greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. To identify these defects, boundary value analysis techniques is introduced. Okay, to identify all these defects, that's the reason why this boundary value analysis got introduced in testing concept. Okay, as per boundary value analysis technique, we can consider lower boundary value analysis only and upper boundary value analysis. Okay, lower boundary value and upper boundary values. For example, there is some year, that is 2000 year. For example, my date of birth is 2000. Okay, so with the help of this boundary value analysis, so I'm going to group some tests like what are all the possible conditions. So as per the boundary value analysis technique, so we need to consider only lower boundary values and upper boundary values, which means lower boundary value minus 1, lower boundary value minus 1 and upper boundary value plus 1. For example, lower boundary value is 2000. So what is lower boundary value minus 1 here? 2000 minus 1, 1999. At the same time, upper boundary value is 2000. 2000 plus 1, that is 2001. So I want to take all my possible input conditions from below 2000. I will avoid after 2000. Okay, I will take only input condition lower boundary values minus 1 only. Okay, I will ignore upper boundary value plus 1 values. Okay, so due to this reason, so we have to consider the middle values always. That is, in between what are all the years we can have, like 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 2001 I will avoid. It is not required. We can take upper boundary value up to 2000 only. We can avoid upper boundary value plus 1, that is 2001 year we can avoid. So these are all the input conditions we will get with the help of this boundary value analysis. Okay, so that's the reason why this boundary value analysis concept came inside this testing part. Okay, so I am not going to discuss about the remaining concepts. If you want, you can check it in Google. So due to time being, I am skipping those remaining techniques. So the next slide here is test case summary report. So this test case summary report will define this test case summary report will define about, so how many number of test cases you have tested, you have automated. Okay, for example, this is my module name, where you can have priorities also, that is P0, P1, P2, P3, whereas P0 is for very high priority, P1 is for high priority, P2 is for medium priority, P3 is for low priority. So likewise, I can have some different modules for one banking application, that is admin. So related to this admin, how many test cases are there? Very high priority test case are 10, medium priority high priority test case are 12, medium priority test cases are 8, and low priority test cases are 10. So total how many test cases for this admin module? There are total of 40 number of test cases. So these details we will keep inside this test case summary report. So how many test cases you tested manually, how many test cases you tested from automation with the help of Selenium tool. So these details we can keep and store inside this test case summary report. Okay, the next one is very important one. What is requirement traceability matrix? Okay, what is requirement traceability matrix? So mapping requirements to corresponding use cases, test scenarios, and test cases. So we are going to map responding use cases to the corresponding scenarios and corresponding test cases. That is called requirement traceability matrix. So here you can see this is one requirement traceability matrix template. Here you can see the first column what I am having, requirement ID or name, which is corresponding to this use case reference, that is 1.5.1, and it is corresponding to this scenario reference, that is test scenario 001. Based upon this corresponding requirement ID, so these are all the test cases references. So likewise we can have some different requirements, that is starting from Gmail homepage, login homepage, and also how many new users registered, and also how many existing users which are using Gmail application. So these are all the requirements. These requirements are corresponding to use case references. These requirements are corresponding to test scenario references. These requirements are corresponding to test case references. So these are all interlinked with each other. So that's why we can call it as requirement traceability matrix. Okay, what are the advantages if we are using this with the help of this requirement traceability matrix? What is the advantage? So as we can trace requirement wise, as we can trace requirement wise, as we can trace use case references wise, as we can trace testing scenario references wise, as we can trace test cases references wise, okay, which will be easily and effectively implemented. With the help of this RTM, we can easily understand, we can easily effectively we can implement all these concepts here. Okay, based upon this requirement ID and use case reference and test scenario reference and test case references, we can easily and identify the and we can effectively implementing the testing here. So as we can trace a group of test cases belong to particular requirement, test execution flow will go smoothly. For example, so I will trace Gmail homepage requirement, how many use cases are there, how many scenarios are there for this Gmail homepage, how many test cases are there for Gmail homepage. So based upon this, our execution will flow, our execution flow will go very smoothly. Okay, and also we can cover that how many and also we can cover the, and also we can track the percentage of test coverage here. Okay, the help of requirement traceability matrix, we can also be able to track the how much percentage we covered till now. So these are all the details we can update in this requirement traceability matrix. So this document will updated by team lead on daily basis. Okay, this requirement traceability matrix will updated by team lead on daily basis. So the next slide here is test execution. So what is the test execution phase here? So in this phase we are going to carry out the below tasks. The first one is conducting smoke testing, and the next one is executing the test cases. Okay, conducting smoke testing. Why we need to conduct some smoke testing? Once a build given for testing, we will conduct some smoke testing to decide whether the given application is testable or not before going to execute our test cases. Okay, once a build given for testing, we are going to conduct some smoke testing to decide whether the given application is testable or not before we are going to start execution of our actual test cases. If smoke testing is passed, then we can start to execute our actual test cases. If smoke testing is failed, then we can reject the build. Okay, we can reject the build. We are not going to execute all our test cases if the smoke test case got failed. So then the next one is here executing test cases. If everything smooth, went very well, so then we can start our executing test cases. Okay, so these are all about this concept, software testing life cycle. It is very important concept, and also it is very important interview question when you are giving interview with more than 3 years of experience or less than 3+ years of experience also. So what is the software testing life cycle, and also we discussed about what is test planning, what are all the activities we can have inside this STLC or STLC phases, what is test planning, test analysis, test design, test execution, and the final one is test closure. Once all the test cases got executed successfully, so then we are going to do some task that is called, we are going to close the tests which are executed successfully. So that will comes under test closure phase. So test plan. So we discussed about all this test plan. So what is a test plan document, and what is test strategy and test plan. So how a test plan template will looks like, and what is test analysis. So during this phase what we are doing, and what is requirement clarification note. So after that, what is the test design. Okay, what is a test design. So in this phase, what are all the specifications we as a testers we can have. So that is from test scenarios. And the next one is, once these test design specifications are completed, that is test scenarios, test scenario summary report, test case for Gmail login, test case design techniques, test case summary report, requirement traceability matrix, and the final one is test execution phase. In this phase we are going to do some smoke testing, so where we are not going to test all our test cases. Okay, so once if we done with few test cases, then only we are going to execute all our test cases. If any test cases got failed, then we can simply reject the build. The next one is executing our test case. The last phase here is test closure. Okay, once all execution got completed, we are going to close all the tests. That will comes under test closure, please. Test closure phase. Okay, so that's all it for in this today tutorial, guys. So I hope you people get some knowledge about this STLC video. So if you like this video, please drop a like, and also don't forget to subscribe, and also share this video to your friends or colleagues, so that this video will recommend for more people, and also which will helps our channel a lot to do more videos from automation and manual testing in our upcoming days. So until then, take care everyone. So have a nice day. Signing off, Silent Tech Automation. Thank you so much, guys.